A decorated colonel, a fallen soldier, and one flight that changed everything. The airport was buzzing, families weaving through crowds, kids darting ahead of tired parents, business travelers glued to their phones. It was a scene of organized chaos, the kind you see every day. But for one man, this wasn't just another day. Colonel David Carter stepped through the terminal doors, his polished dress shoes clicking softly against the tile floor. His uniform was immaculate. Ribbons, medals, insignias, a lifetime of service worn with quiet pride. But the weight on his chest wasn't from those decorations. It was from the flag-draped casket waiting outside on the tarmac. Private First Class Jason Reynolds, 21. Gone too soon. Colonel Carter had been through airports all over the world, but this time was different. This time he wasn't flying for strategy or diplomacy. He was on a mission, one grounded in honor, not orders. He was bringing a fallen soldier home, and nothing, not even red tape, was supposed to stand in his way. He approached the airline counter, placed his military documents and ID down, and offered a respectful nod. The young agent behind the desk didn't even look up at first. She tapped away at her keyboard, then paused. Too long. Her brows pinched. Her fingers hovered. She glanced at her coworker. "Sir, can I see that again?" she asked, voice tight. Colonel Carter handed the documents back, watching her carefully. He knew that look, the hesitation, the whisper to another agent, the sideways glance. He'd seen it in war zones, in boardrooms, even in briefings where something was about to go sideways. Moments later, she returned, her smile stiff and practiced. "I'm sorry, sir, but there's an issue with your ticket. We can't allow you to board at this time." Carter didn't flinch, didn't raise his voice. Years of military discipline wouldn't allow it. "I'm escorting the remains of a fallen soldier. Everything is in order," he said, calm but firm. "I understand, sir," she replied, still avoiding eye contact. "But there's a security protocol in place. We can't override it." Security protocol? That was new. Behind him, the line of travelers grew restless. Quiet murmurs, shifting feet. But Colonel Carter stood tall, refusing to step aside. "I need to understand the exact issue," he said. "This is not a personal trip. This is a military assignment. My documentation is valid." More hesitation, more whispering behind the counter. A supervisor finally emerged. Mid-50s, tired eyes, arms folded like a man who'd rather be anywhere else. "I apologize for the inconvenience," the supervisor said in that rehearsed, neutral tone used to mask discomfort. "But unfortunately, we can't override the policy at this time." That word again. Policy. Carter took a breath. "I've done this before," he said. "There's no policy that prevents military personnel from escorting a fallen comrade. So please, tell me the real reason I'm being denied." The supervisor shifted, cleared his throat. "It's just a security measure. Nothing personal, sir." Nothing personal. The words burned, but Carter didn't break. He'd seen too many people hide behind vague language, waiting for someone to snap so they could shift the blame. He wouldn't give them that excuse. And now people were watching. A woman in a red blazer whispered to her husband. A young man frowned, phone in hand, recording. And then someone spoke up. "Sir, is there an issue with his military clearance?" It came from further back in line. A man in his 60s, weathered face, USMC hat pulled low. A Marine. The supervisor stiffened. "No, sir, this isn't about clearance. It's standard protocol." The Marine folded his arms. "Yeah, I've been through 1,000 checkpoints and never once saw protocol block a soldier from bringing one of our own home. So, what's really going on here?" The terminal shifted. A ripple of energy moved through the crowd. Phones went up, eyes focused. The airline staff could feel it. The agent behind the counter glanced nervously at her supervisor. The pressure was building. Then from behind, a young woman stepped forward. Maybe 25, phone in hand, voice steady but unsure. "Excuse me, sir. They're not letting you board?" "That's correct," Carter answered. She blinked and then turned her phone toward him. "I'm live right now," she said. "People need to see this." And just like that, the spark became a fire. Another voice joined in. "This is wrong," a man muttered, phone raised. He's escorting a fallen soldier, for God's sake. Further back, someone shouted, "Can someone explain why a man in uniform is being turned away?" The crowd was no longer just passengers. They were witnesses. The agent's hands trembled over her keyboard. Her eyes flickered toward the phones aimed in her direction. The supervisor rubbed his temples, clearly overwhelmed. And then, the Marine took one step forward, face hard, patience gone. He was done playing nice. "I've seen a lot in my time," the Marine said, voice steady but laced with steel. "But I never thought I'd witness the day an American soldier, especially one escorting a fallen brother, would be treated like this." The terminal fell into a tense, eerie silence. Even the usual airport announcements faded into the background. All that remained were the soft beeps and buzzes of cell phones recording, streaming, capturing every second. The Marine squared his shoulders. "This is a disgrace." The agent behind the counter swallowed hard. Her hands trembled slightly as she clicked at her keyboard again. But she wasn't looking at the screen. Her eyes were on the growing crowd, on the uniformed man standing his ground. Still, the supervisor hadn't returned. Passengers murmured. A baby fussed in a stroller, but instead of comforting the child, the mother stared at her phone with a deepening scowl. Then from somewhere in the back of the line, someone muttered, "It's already trending." Colonel David Carter didn't react. He didn't need to. The world was watching now. The tension was thick, charged. The airline staff were stuck in place, stunned, unsure. Phones were out. Tweets were flying. The truth wasn't just standing in front of them anymore. It was going viral. The young man in the hoodie glanced up from his phone and let out a low whistle. "Damn, this is everywhere now." Carter stayed motionless, stoic. But behind the stillness, he could see it. How the agent stiffened. How her eyes flickered toward the back like she wanted to disappear. The woman in the denim jacket checked her phone and gasped. "Oh my God," she whispered to her husband. "It's already on Facebook." The older Marine grunted and pulled out his own phone. They don't even know the storm they just unleashed. And then, as if on cue, the loudspeaker crackled to life. "Attention passengers. Due to unforeseen circumstances, Flight 237 to Phoenix has been delayed. We apologize for the inconvenience." Groans rippled through the crowd, but most people weren't paying attention. Their eyes were still on Colonel Carter, the soldier who had been told no for reasons no one could or would explain. A young woman near the window gasped again. "He's on Twitter." She turned her screen toward the crowd. People leaned in to read. "They just denied a black U.S. Army colonel his flight while he's escorting a fallen soldier's remains. This is how we treat our heroes? Let him fly." Underneath, the numbers were climbing. Retweets, comments, thousands of likes. It was catching fire. Then another post appeared, this one from a national veterans advocacy group. "We are aware of the disgraceful incident happening at Airport Name. Our soldiers deserve better. Expect action." The murmur of the crowd shifted. This wasn't just an inconvenience anymore. This was a public relations disaster unfolding in real time. And the airline had just lost control of the narrative. The agent behind the counter finally broke. She turned, scurried toward the back, and disappeared behind a frosted glass door. She wasn't coming back with answers. She was going to get someone who could put out the fire. Carter adjusted his hat. He'd seen moments like this before. Not in airports, but in foreign lands. Intense briefings, in rooms where powerful people suddenly realized they had underestimated the wrong man. But he wasn't smiling. He wasn't gloating. Because this moment wasn't about him. It was about Private First Class Jason Reynolds, the young man whose remains were still waiting. The crowd had shifted from watching to waiting. The terminal felt alive now, filled with anticipation. Then finally the supervisor returned. But he wasn't alone. Next to him was a man in a sharp navy blue suit, airline badge clipped neatly to his lapel. His walk was brisk, controlled, the kind of gait Carter had seen in people used to cleaning up other people's messes. He stopped a few feet from the counter, took one look at the sea of phones still recording, and cleared his throat. "Colonel, I want to sincerely apologize for the miscommunication," he said smoothly. "There seems to have been a system error, but we're working to get you on your flight immediately." Miscommunication. Carter had been in the military long enough to know exactly what that meant. It meant, we got caught. It meant, Fix this fast before it blows up any further. He didn't respond right away. He just let the silence hang, watching the airline representative squirm under the pressure of 100 eyes and 1,000 cameras. I see, Carter finally said. His voice was calm, measured. You're calling it an error? Yes, sir. A regrettable mistake. We assure you, it was not intentional. A few people in the crowd scoffed. The Marine from earlier folded his arms, shaking his head. The airline rep cleared his throat and continued. We'd like to personally escort you to the gate now, Colonel. First-class accommodations, of course. First class, as if that was the point. Carter looked past the man, back to the counter where the agent had stood just moments before, the one who had denied him a seat without so much as a second glance. He exhaled slowly. I appreciate the urgency, he said, but I need to ask something. Of course, the rep replied a bit too quickly. If no one had recorded this, if no one had spoken up, Carter paused, letting the question settle in. Would I still be standing here? The silence was louder than any answer. You don't need to respond, Carter said softly, because we both know the answer. From the crowd, a woman's voice echoed gently. He's right. The rep tried again. Sir, we sincerely apologize. This isn't about an apology, Carter said. It's about accountability. The terminal murmured in agreement. The energy had shifted again. No longer outrage, but a deep, shared disappointment. The rep straightened his tie, clearly rattled. Colonel, let us get you to your flight now. But before Carter could move, a new voice interrupted. Sir, said a younger man in a security uniform approaching the counter. He looked tense, holding a phone out to the rep. You're going to want to see this. The rep frowned, took the phone, and began to scroll. Then his face went pale. The Marine crossed his arms. Well, what is it? Something was wrong. The airline rep didn't say it aloud, but Carter could see it in his eyes. He just looked at something on the airport security officer's phone, and whatever it was, it changed everything. A major news outlet had picked up the story. The headline was bold, unforgiving. U.S. Army colonel denied boarding while escorting fallen soldier. Airline scrambles to respond. Below it played a video, footage taken moments earlier in that very terminal. The rep swallowed hard and handed the phone back to the officer. He turned to Carter, voice tight. We deeply regret this situation, Colonel. We'd like to issue a public statement clarifying, but Carter cut him off, his tone like steel. The public already knows the truth. The terminal went quiet again. The rep pressed his lips together, realizing words weren't enough anymore. Carter glanced around at the crowd, phones still held high, passengers watching closely. He turned back. I don't need first class. I don't need special treatment, he said, voice steady. I need respect, and so does the soldier I'm escorting. Another wave of murmurs rippled through the terminal. The rep gave a stiff nod, because that's all he could do now. Understood, sir. The older Marine who had stood nearby this entire time gave a small grunt of approval. Carter adjusted his hat, eyes firm. Now let me finish this mission. But for the airline, the storm was just beginning. They had lost control. The story had ignited and was now spreading far beyond that terminal. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, live streams. It was everywhere. The boarding area no longer felt like an airport gate. It felt like a press conference, a reckoning. Then something unexpected happened. A man in a dark blue suit, crisp and composed, entered the terminal. His posture told everyone he wasn't with the airline, and he wasn't airport security. He was military. People instinctively stepped aside as he walked forward. His ID badge flashed briefly as he approached Carter. Colonel, he said, voice firm, extending his hand. I'm Major Thomas Beckett, Department of the Army. We've been informed of the situation. Carter shook his hand. He didn't need to ask how the major got there so quickly. The military doesn't delay when it comes to its own. Beckett turned to the airline rep, voice sharp and professional. We're handling this now. Colonel Carter and the remains of Private First Class Jason Reynolds will not be flying commercial. The rep blinked, startled. Sir, we were just about to... You were just about to cover your tracks, Beckett interrupted. The words were polite, but they hit like a hammer. He turned back to Carter. Sir, the Pentagon has arranged a private military flight. Your transport is ready. A collective murmur rose from the crowd. The United States military had stepped in. Carter exhaled, not in relief but in resolve. The mission was finally back on track. "Understood, Major," he said, giving a small nod. Beckett cast one final glance at the airline rep. His voice dropped low. "This will be addressed." It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Carter turned to the Marine who had stood by him. "Appreciate you, brother," he said. The Marine nodded. "We look out for our own." Carter looked once more at the people around him, the ones who had recorded, tweeted, spoken up, the ones who refused to stay silent. He adjusted his uniform, squared his shoulders, and walked not toward the gate, but toward the waiting military transport. But for the airline? The fallout was only just beginning. They thought it would fade with a carefully worded apology, maybe a press release, maybe the CEO would make a statement. Damage control, the usual playbook. But the public wasn't letting this one go. Veterans groups issued strong condemnations. Politicians weighed in, demanding accountability. News networks replayed the footage on a loop. Then came the financial consequences. By the end of the week, the airline's stock had dropped. A trending hashtag calling for a boycott gained serious traction. Social media exploded with angry comments. People demanded answers. And then came the final blow. A coalition of military advocacy groups filed a formal lawsuit accusing the airline of discrimination and failure to uphold protections for service members. Cornered, the airline's CEO finally appeared on camera. He called it a regrettable misunderstanding and announced that the employees involved had been placed on administrative leave. Too little. Too late. Meanwhile, Colonel Carter completed the mission. He stood tall beside Private First Class Reynolds' flag-draped coffin, ensuring the young soldier was received with dignity by his grieving family. There were no cameras, no hashtags, just honor. Carter never asked for attention. He didn't need the spotlight. He needed respect, and that's what this was always about. Respect shouldn't be conditional. It shouldn't require a viral video or public outrage. It should be the standard. The people at that airport, the Marine, the passengers, the ones who refused to look away, they proved something powerful. When people stand together, injustice has nowhere to hide. So if you believe in accountability, if you believe in honoring those who serve, let your voice be heard, because silence lets things like this happen again. And next time, it might not go viral.